Recording has begun.
All right, hello and welcome to the Helm developer call. This is a call for August 30th, 2018. So the format is go through any announcements, then core team gives stand-ups, then any discussions after that. So I'm not aware of any announcements. Does anybody have one to add?
I do. This week we switched to the DCO from the CLA. For anybody who did not follow, I can drop the. We published a blog post, but at the start of the week, we moved from the CNCF CLA to the DCO. The DCO means you sign off on your commits rather than signing or getting your company to sign the legal agreements with the CNCF. The CLA. I think the only CNCF projects to use it are Kubernetes and gRPC, although Vitesse might be using it too. It's one of the newer ones to join. All these things came out of Google. Google wants the CLA in continuation of their CLA. Everything else uses the DCO, and if you actually read the DCO, you'll see the CNCF is part of the Linux Foundation. The Linux Foundation wrote the DCO. See, they like their DCO. So we switched to it, and we've got a DCO checker bot on it. So the switch is done. There's a FAQ in here if you've got questions. That's the only announcement that I know of.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. All right, we can jump into stand-ups then. Anand, do you want to
start? Sure. Not much from me, apart from there was the Monocular 1.0 proposal that I added to the Helm community repo. So it got approved by a couple of people, I think. I don't actually know what a process is, if it's in a state that we can merge it now or if we want to have more people look at it. But let me paste the link to the PR here. But yeah, otherwise, that was it.
All right, Fisher, since it looks like you're on a boat or something.
I had to find the prettiest spot in the conference. Sorry, I'm just kind of hiding on the conference floor, and it's right behind the Inner Harbor of Vancouver. So this last week, so Taylor and I are both over here at Open Source Summit North America, and we have been kind of like pairing on some 2.11 stuff last week, and then we're also kind of doing like some powwow stuff over together, just kind of triaging some 2.11 stuff. And then I joined late. I'm not sure if Michelle talked about it, but we also were triaging one particular bug earlier today. So that has been what I have been doing for this last week. And then continuing on, I think we're going to continue just triaging 2.11 stuff. Yeah, that's about it, really. I was late, so who has not gone? Can I just pass back to Adam to throw back to someone else?
Yep, go Brian.
Yeah, I've just been working on Lua for Helm 3. Progress is moving forward. That's about all I have though. Michelle?
Yeah, okay, so I paired with Farina earlier this week on the DCO change so that there would be a second set of eyes on that. Thanks for doing most of the work, Farina, beforehand. That was awesome and super smooth. Let's see. And, oh yeah, this, like Fisher mentioned, we've been triaging this like one bug where if you run a Helm upgrade and it fails, but it's created resources and you try to do a Helm upgrade after that, then there's resources already created because of the failed upgrade. So you can't actually recreate as part of Helm because it already exists in your cluster. So that's been causing some people some headache. So Fisher and I worked through some let's see, some possible solutions this morning. And then I checked with Adam right before this meeting, just because he's had some context in the space too. So ran those past him. I think and actually Butcher as well. So the next step is to write down what those options are and the pros and cons, and kind of let the community take a look at what we want to do moving forward. So that's where I'm at, and I'm going to continue working on that. I'll probably have time in the next few days to also review some pull requests. Vic, you want to go?
Yeah, this week, or I guess last couple weeks, I was working with some of the folks at Replicated who their business is to ship off-the-shelf software for various vendors into enterprise environments, and a lot of those vendors use Helm charts, and so they wanted an easier way to customize those things. So I worked with them to do the presentation at SIGAPS on how they are looking at basically customization of Helm charts and having a way to update very little in the Helm chart in order to make it work for various, it was replicated ship, that's right, man. And basically to allow users to take our upstream Helm charts and just customize the pieces that they need for their environments. One of the things that I want to do with some of the stuff that Brian's working on with the Lua stuff is figure out how would we do these kind of last mile customizations, as I've called them, natively in Helm. So I'm interested to see when that stuff lands, if there's an obvious place that the kind of, deployment environment specific configuration can be tweaked in Helm charts, and how easy that experience is. If you didn't get a chance, Adnan posted the video of the SIGAPS demo. It's about 15 to 20 minutes and shows that they have a nice UI that takes you through kind of this customization process.
Yeah, this was actually, Adam, the reason that I was asking about plugins being able to subscribe to events earlier in the week was a direct cause of this, because I was trying to figure out how we could do this with the plugin model, if that was a good idea.
Cool. Who has not gone? We have Butcher. Oh, he's like right in my face. I'm looking at him. I'll go to Farina because I was literally looking into his eyes as I said, who hasn't gone?
Oh, thank you for staring so nicely into my eyes. So I did with Michelle the DCO change, and did a bunch of work to prep for that, so that way it would just be mostly checkboxes and merges and stuff when it finally came time. So there was that change. I've been working on some follow-up issues just with the charts automation, because we're still using the automation from Kubernetes to allow owners to merge charts. And so there's some little things there. I'm learning a little bit more about Brigade and what we can do. So just smoothing out some of those bumps. I think part of it is just process bumps for folks who want to now make changes to PRs. And so half the PR was done under the CLA, and now it's coming in under the DCO. And with the other DCO bot, you have a way to bypass that, and I've got a few people hitting the approve it anyway in the UI for GitHub to approve the DCO, but our bot doesn't respect that. So we caught situations where we do need to work on that sign off, and probably need to talk through a little bit more of it in the next charts call. But we're working through some of those automation bumps. And next up, I'll probably get back to my automated updates thing and some of the governance stuff. I've been working on governance things. If you haven't seen it, Butcher and I made changes again to that governance doc. Go read them. And with that, I'll hand it off to Butcher.
I had governance docs this week. So this last week, worked on that with Matt Farina. I think we're pretty much there, right? As far as the governance doc goes, we still have maybe a few things for people to comment on, but we think we've solved all the big problems at this point. Is that fair to say?
I hope so.
And then I worked a little bit with Karen to get Karen Chu does the marketing stuff, PR stuff for CNCF Helm, transitioning a few more things over there, a few things over from Microsoft or legacy Deis to CNCF Control, and then I just about wore out all the muscles in my right arm by reviewing Adam's mega PRs last week. yeah, the Helm 3 stuff is coming along very nicely at this point. So I will be gone for the next 2 weeks in a row. I'll be at Container Camp in the UK next week, so if anybody's out there, that's good. And then I have an internal Microsoft event the week after that. So my scrolly finger still hurts. So I won't be around for the next couple of weeks, though I'll probably do what I can to keep the PRs rolling on Helm 3 by just reviewing people's PRs. So that is it for me. Josh, did you go?
No, so I'm looking at Helm login command stuff. Chart Museum, somebody on Matt Farina's team actually added ability to verify JWT tokens. So that's pretty cool. We need to come up with a way, what are all the different scopes for people? Like, do we want permissions around the entire repo or also around specific chart names, chart versions? So trying to figure out what that looks like. That's about it. I'm giving a short talk on Helm 3 tonight. If anyone's in San Francisco, I was talking to Matt Butcher about what is Helm 3. So I may want to, if anybody has any interesting stats about like the growth of Helm 3 or the growth of Helm over time that they could share, that'd be great. That's it. Who else? Did Adam go?
Yeah, I think it's just me left. So yeah, I got a bunch of stuff merged on Helm 3. A lot of the refactorings that had to happen to get ready for the Lua stuff, as well as like the new API for dealing with charts and releases. And it ended up being that for last week of changes. I just posted in chat, so Butcher wasn't joking. So thank you, Butcher, and Fisher reviewed a lot too. Other than that, just been I helped out with the bug that Fisher and Michelle were talking about with upgrades. I think after this, we're gonna get together and try to write some stuff down and figure out some solutions to it. And I think that's about it for me. Anybody that hasn't gone, that isn't part of core, have anything they wanted to bring up? No? Okay. Move on to discussions. The first one is estimating the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow. Who posted this one?
I think we wrote a Helm chart to figure this out, didn't we, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, nobody's stepping up. I guess we'll bump that one until next week because I'm not sure who added that. The other one is the Eric's Kate's client.
So this was me.
Look,
I put this in because client Go, we all know it's pain points. And so the question is, I mean, Matt, you asked a good question here. Is it being maintained? And I don't know the answer to it, but I like his approach. Adam, would it be practical to use an alternative client in Helm 3 from Client Go? Would that be practical?
it's kind of hard to answer that without having looked into it.
I actually went and tried it this week to see. I didn't try it with Helm. I just started a new small project just to kind of test it out and see. It is different enough that to switch to something like that would be a fairly pervasive change. I actually think I think Eric made some very wise choices with the way he constructed the library from an on-the-wire protocol view, but that it bubbles up to more work for users of the library. And specifically, he chose to use pointers for all the fields so that you could have a nil pointer to represent that the field is not there. This is the approach that Apache Thrift took in order to do their in order to distinguish between a 0 value and a nil and an unset value.
And GitHub.
So GitHub uses, the GitHub API from Google uses that as well. And so it's not a, it's a way to work around the fact that Go has this sort of like, I'm going to call it half-baked notion of emptiness, where sometimes that means a nil pointer and other times that means a 0 value, right? It's probably not half-baked, actually. It's fairly straightforward under the covers why they did it that way. But it means that in order to use this particular library, you have to do a lot of pointer management. So it's kind of cumbersome when you're just trying to set a bunch of string fields on something because you're actually doing more than just that, right? And there were parts of the library that were still not 100%, didn't feel 100% done. I started to look into the watch, but I don't remember. Now I'm starting to get that watch confused with one of the other libraries I was using, but I don't think it had watch implemented, if I recall correctly. So there were a couple things like that. That overall, though, it was sure nice to be able to run a dep ensure in like 5 seconds. So it might be a viable alternative. We would just have to commit to, if we use it, we have to commit to the fact that it will be a pervasive change through massive parts of the Helm code base.
Okay. Is it worth, even though it's a pervasive change, is taking this work and making sure that it's supported and ongoing, and filling in the missing needs, is that, I'm kind of curious, is it worth it? Is it worth taking some of the ideas here and making something where you maybe don't have to deal with pointer management all the time and trying to come up with a solution for that? Is it better to stay with client Go? Do we have any feel on, this is the time to break the client Go change if we want to.
Right. So what's driving this? Is there something specific with client Go that you're trying to?
The pain of upgrading versions and dealing with cross-versionness.
Yeah, like the client Go to API machinery to whatever that other library is called and core Kubernetes library where they're versioned differently or unversioned entirely, that kind of stuff.
It's the pain of continuing to use client Go and upgrading every single month and dealing with the pain of client Go. Because client Go's experience probably isn't going to get much better. Because they're trying to do a lot with the API internals rather than making a nice client library for those on the outside. They're really more focused on the internals of Kubernetes and what it means in there and in their controllers, and that's kind of the primary target audience here. And so is there a better alternative that we should go where we just don't have to deal with client Go anymore and things work maybe a little bit more nicely? Where we don't have to do these API changes. Because if something hits the API and we're talking, V1 apps V1 for deployments, that should work cross-version and not have problems. And upgrading, we shouldn't have to run into all of these issues. Is there a way to make this a little bit easier on us as a consumer of a library by using something else or maybe getting on board with something else as an alternative? Or helping drive something else even, just so we don't have to deal with client Go's versions and changes. And Adam, I was most interested in you being here to talk about this because you're the person who's most felt this pain.
Yeah, it's something we can definitely look into. I haven't looked into that library at all. So just to see what the differences would be. We might not be able to get away. I shouldn't say that. Yeah, I just got to look into it a little bit.
Okay.
So
I was wrong. This one does have a watch library. It was another one I was looking at that didn't.
I'll take a look at it this week.
Okay. I was just curious about this. Helm 3 is the time if we're going to break things to break this change. And so I wanted to entertain the conversation. That was it. And not even suggesting this library be the one. It's just the one others have pointed out to me.
Okay, and then the last thing on here is Docker Hub versus alternatives for public image distribution. Who added this one?
That was me again. So on the chart side, we are going to distribute a chart testing library. We use it internally for testing the charts repo. And we've been talking about it for a while. Where's the right place to tell people to go get it from, right? There's GCR, there's Azure, there's Bintray, which I've been hearing a lot about lately. There's Docker Hub, there's Quay. If we're going to point people to one location, even if we upload it to more than one, or say do the automated builds from more than one, what's the one we should point folks to? For a sheer discoverability standpoint, and this went out on the email list, yeah, I agree with Butcher here in chat. Probably Docker Hub's the way to go, just to make it very, very discoverable. Quay, this is not to say we don't push it to multiple places. Like no matter what, I want to stick it in Quay because Quay, when it does a build, is going to tell us if there are vulnerabilities, right? And I think we have to have a license to do that on Docker Hub. I think I got to go look at it again, but it's not as straightforward. So I'd want to stick it into multiple places, but the place where we point people to.
Yeah, the one opinion that I have is that I do believe that Docker Hub is like the place where everyone seems to be uploading their images and where the community has all been doing that for that kind of thing. The only thing that I'm just a little bit concerned about, and I know like even Matt Farina, you even had a talk about this at the Helm Developer Summit, is like how do we gather metrics for Helm and how do we gather these kind of things? And at least from my experience from us having open source tooling like Deis Workflow and other things that were uploaded onto Docker Hub, we were having a tough time trying to figure out like image download count and things that were metrics from Docker Hub that we had to scrape, or it didn't seem that it was necessarily accurate to what we thought the actual real downloads were. So that's something that might be a little bit of a snag, but I don't think it's necessarily a blocker if the discoverability and making that public and whatnot is the primary driver for this. If metrics and things like that are the primary driver, then that might be a little bit more of a interesting use case.
If there were something more metrics based, what would be the best of them for that? Quay?
I haven't actually tried out and seen Quay, but internally, I think internally with us, because we're using private images in some places like Azure Container Registry, because it's hosted on Azure Blob Storage, we can hit the metadata endpoints and get the ingress and egress metrics from there. But Azure Container Registry is not public. So we wouldn't be able to even have that available to customers. So the answer is I don't know if there's really a hub yet that really has really awesome metrics gathering for community members.
Here, I'll shrink this down because I think I made it big. Here's a Quay example. You can actually say time periods and then see the metrics on any given day. Polls, and you can see some of these other things. And this is for something that I just threw up there, right?
Okay.
That's it. That's better. But then again, I don't know. Is the metrics payoff better or not?
I mean, as long as we can, I think it's always interesting to be able to grab these numbers regardless. So it's more like a vanity thing than an actual primary driver. But I just wanted to bring that up. If Quay has really decent metrics, that might be something that would be a good alternative to at least experiment with and see if it might be a better option overall. But I don't know if it's, I would pull it up to the community to figure out what they would like to be.
And perfect timing for Taylor to come up because we have to do assignments.
Martin asked a question about DCO in the chat.
Yeah, hi. Just wondering, with a particular PR that's in there, do I need the DCO now, even though I was created before on CLA?
No, the CLA should suffice because it was from before the DCO. Although it seems the DCO has been set as a required, so we'll probably need to touch that. But if it came in beforehand, we're good. That the
Yeah,
DCO.
I set that to required, Karina, because I just swapped out the checks when I took off the old CLA check to be the new required one being the DCO.
I think it's okay because the contribution was from before. I think. Never checked.
Yeah.
So what we did when we switched from into the Kubernetes org was we went and marked all the PRs that had been covered by the old CLA, the Google CLA. We left a comment saying covered under CLA or something like that, and just pasted it onto all the PRs. And then switched the bot over to use the new Kubernetes CLA and treated the old ones as valid for a particular period of time. So I imagine we could do the same.
What we've been doing in the charge repo, but once you make a change to the pull request for its content, then you need to sign the DCO.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I can wait to see how the review goes. Yeah, thanks.
All right, and we're 1 minute over now, so let's go ahead and do assignments. Let's see, who wants to take notes?
I can do notes next time.
And Sherpa
Sherpa.
and moderator.
Moderator.
Awesome. All right, folks. I think we're done.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, everybody.
Who said they would do notes?
Me.
Who's me? Taylor. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.